Hello, hello, hello. Hey, Julie. Can you hear me, sis? Thank you for coming here. Okay, good deal. Can you hear the TV in the background? It's on. I don't know. I have to leave a little bit of noise on or my dogs go fucking nuts. I know. I love you truly. And I always got yours too. I love you so much. And congratulations on leveling up in your Cincy business. You got a little pay raise there too. I know it ain't much, but it makes it a little bit of difference. Okay, you can hear it. Good deal. Every little bit does help. That is very true, and I can't believe more people aren't signing up with this deal that we signed up with, because this is a deal me and you both signed up with, the $35 deal, or might have even been cheaper than that at the time, but it's an amazing deal just for the kit. Crazy, ain't it? Man, that mushroom warmer done sold out. I had a girl she was trying to order one and it was sold out. I knew it would. 'Cause it's so fucking cute. Yeah, we're the same level consultant now, love. I probably won't ever get any higher, but I'm okay with that. It is cute. I love it. I ordered me one. Thank God I got it. I got it the day it was released because I already knew I had a feeling it was going to sell out because I haven't seen a warmer that adorable from Cincy. You know what I mean? I mean, they're all cute. There's a lot of them, but it's so different. And I'm obsessed with mushrooms. Okay. Hey, Running Bear. How you doing, love? Sis, how do you like your Savannah warmer? I know you said you got one through a party. I love mine. Me too. I love mine too. It's awesome, ain't it? Do you got just a regular bulb in it or a colored one? I got the pink bulb in mine, but I think I'm just going to put the regular one back in. If you want a pink bulb, I can send you one, sis. I think I got purple bulbs too. I got all of them, I think. Mine's in my bedroom too. Oh, see, I haven't used it with the regular bulb. That's cool. The wax kind of colors it. Do you want me to send you a pink one and a purple one bulb just in case? You might use it on another warmer. Yeah, I like the double glass. And it's leopard, and I wanted that one so bad, and I just could not justify paying that price. And so have a party and you get it half price or free even if you get enough orders. Always set up a party for yourself. Always. I got you, sis. I will send you some for sure. Because the pink ones you can only get in October for breast cancer awareness, I think. Me too. As soon as I've seen it, because leopard, I love it. Okay. Yeah, they'll be back in, October. Look, I actually got the 20-watt ones and the 25-watt ones because I got so excited and ordering them, and I ordered the 20-watt and I needed the 25, so I don't think any of my warmers are 20-watt. I don't know. Alright, let's get into this. I know there's only 3 of us here or whatever, and I'm okay with that. I'm actually good with that because during this live, I'm gonna tell my story. I'm gonna put myself out there and and there's only a few people that know my story, and yeah, bingo, truly, bingo, baby. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I don't, back whenever they were trying to get rid of Roe versus Wade, and they banned abortions in a lot of states. Okay, I'm pro-choice, absolutely pro-choice. We should have a right to our body. People don't know situations, you don't know, fucked up shit happens. I got pretty pissed when they done that. Alabama, I'm a diehard Alabama football fan. My daddy's lived there my whole life, and there's literally like 10 years behind the rest of the country. They banned abortions completely, like completely. Well, some of you's probably seen if you haven't. Now they have banned families using IVF. And that really, really, really fucked me up when they done that. I've never done IVF or nothing, but I totally support it. And in my opinion, IVF is totally different than an abortion. IVF is people praying to God to have a family, a baby. You know what I mean? And now they can't. So, and there's people got the frozen embryos and they have no access to them because they're considering an embryo now. If you get rid of that frozen embryo and don't use it, they're considering it murder. And that's not right. So these people should be able to file taxes and stuff on those embryos, those frozen embryos, right? It is fucked up, truly, and I'm really upset over it. And I've been aiming to do this sooner, and I know it's just me and you here, but I don't care, and it's not right. And now other states are starting to follow suit. Whenever they banned abortions and done all that, because I paid attention to that, and a lot of people said that next they're going to be going after IVF, and sure enough, oh, truly, I'm so sorry. And see, it's so sad, man. Why IVF? Why would you do that to people? These people want these babies. These people want a family. And it's not their fault. They can't have children naturally, conceive naturally, and it's really fucked up. And my heart absolutely breaks for these people. I'm gonna start and we're gonna watch a few clips here, and yeah, it's so wrong.
Across the country, growing concerns and questions are now mounting, with many wondering how Alabama's ruling on frozen embryos and IVF could have an impact on other states.
I can't imagine the feeling that the families in Alabama are going through right now. It's terrifying.
Julie Eshelman and her husband are looking forward to having a second child, a younger sibling to their daughter Millie, who was born using IVF.
When you began the IVF process, could you have even imagined this would be a conversation you'd be having?
I never in a million years would have imagined that we would have been, he would be here right now.
While they currently live in Pennsylvania, Julie's husband is on active duty in the Army. In July, for his next assignment, they could end up in any state at the time when they plan to transfer their already frozen embryos.
Ultimately, it's up to the Army where they send us. So we pay attention, to, rulings like this and legislation and bills because it impacts us and it matters.
Julie and her husband are concerned, and they're not alone. Now that Alabama's state Supreme Court has ruled that frozen embryos qualify as children, many patients and doctors will be impacted and could face legal repercussions.
We're really complicated organisms, and a lot can go wrong. Yet there might be legal repercussions to the physicians and the clinic staff who somehow couldn't overcome Mother Nature and keep them alive. That's really, really scary.
There are currently an estimated 1,400 IVF cycles in Alabama each year, and nationwide, over 400,000, according to the CDC, resulting in about 97,000 babies born each year from IVF. But in the wake of the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade in 2022 and abortion restrictions in 15 states, according to Planned Parenthood, many reproductive rights experts believe something similar could happen with this case, with other states beyond Alabama issuing similar rulings or legislation and leaving clinics vulnerable to lawsuits over frozen embryos and limiting fertility treatment.
Does this ruling, even though it's in a state you don't live, put more pressure on a timeline for you to make a determination of when you'll pursue your next round of IVF?
I definitely think that it's going to add that pressure for sure, because of the uncertainty and whether it's going to put things at jeopardy in the near future or, a year from now. Like, I have to be prepared that it could happen tomorrow.
The emotional cost of this situation is so difficult for families to put words to, but we can quantify the financial cost to some extent. For perspective, a single IVF cycle can cost up to $30,000. It's another $10,000 to freeze embryos and transfer them later, and that is best case scenario. Many patients go through several cycles of all of this, adding to that bill, and critics of Alabama's court ruling say now liability costs could skyrocket. Guys, that would make fertility treatment prices prohibitive for families, even more so than they already are, if you can imagine that.
Yeah, it's one of those moments. Right now, it's confined to Alabama, but the question is, what are the legal ramifications, if any? And it's got people who are in the midst of IVF really, really nervous.
And Julie pointed out, when you saw what happened after Roe v. Wade was overturned with the Dobbs decision and how quickly states reacted there, when I asked her about her own timeline, that's exactly what she pointed to. We could see that ripple effect so quickly here.
All right, Kaylee, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on our streaming channel, Today All Day. To watch, head to today.com/allday or click the link right here.
A decision from the Alabama Supreme Court has alarmed doctors, patients, and reproductive rights advocates. On Friday, the court ruled that frozen embryos created through in vitro fertilization, or IVF, are legally children and thus protected. The designation of personhood could have significant repercussions for reproductive rights. Stephanie Tsai looks at the questions raised by this ruling.
William, this issue made its way to Alabama's Supreme Court after 3 families sued when their frozen embryos were taken from a clinic and then accidentally destroyed. They sued under the state's Wrongful Death of a Minor Act. Alabama's High Court asserted the law applies to all children, born and unborn, including, to the shock of many, frozen embryos. Today,
See, I get what they said about, those people, their embryos got destroyed. I would be upset too, but I know it's horrible and I could not imagine it happening to me or somebody I know, but shit happens. So now you have made it to where other families can't yeah. Jack J. Please quit calling me KKK. You done that over in shares a while ago, and I removed your comment. That's not my name. Please don't do that. Respect me. Thank you. That is so disrespectful. I know, holy shit, sis, it's crazy. There's other states that's following suit with it. It's fucked up. Okay, I'll finish this since my dog's gonna raise hell.
University of Alabama Birmingham Health System said it is pausing IVF procedures because of a fear of prosecution. For more, I'm joined by Mary Ziegler, a legal historian and expert on reproduction and healthcare. Mary, thank you, as always, for being with the NewsHour. About 2% of all babies born in this country are conceived through assisted reproductive technology. What are the concerns about how this decision will affect reproductive rights and options?
Well, I think the decision casts a shadow on a lot of options that usually are available through IVF. So, for example, if people have extra embryos, they can no longer be destroyed. They can no longer be donated for research in Alabama. It's not even clear what.
Oh, and Jack J, don't call me your friend because I have no fucking clue who you are. Carry on.
The legality of storing them would be, or potentially they'll need to be implanted. And then there's just the simple fact, as we've seen with the University of Alabama and Birmingham, the threat that if embryos are inadvertently damaged or destroyed, that could lead to lawsuits or even to criminal prosecutions, which I think is going to have a tremendous chilling effect on fertility care in the state.
Mary, I want to read an excerpt from the Chief Justice's concurring opinion. The people of Alabama, he says, have declared the public policy of this state to be that unborn human life is sacred. We believe that each human being from the moment of conception is made in the image of God, created by him to reflect his likeness. So the Chief Justice there invoking scripture from the Bible in a legal ruling. What is your take on that?
Well, I think this is a sign of the ascendance of the Christian legal movement, which I think is distinct from what we're used to thinking of, right? It's not the Federalist Society. It's part of a conservative legal movement that asserts that the Constitution is a Christian document, that the nation is a Christian nation, and that there should be no daylight really between church and state when it comes to interpretation of the law. And the Chief Justice was making the point that in his view, the people of Alabama have already embraced that position. It's striking to see this in a court ruling, right? This is not coming from a social movement. And I think it'll shift the Overton window and make it more likely that we'll see more language of this kind from other courts.
The Overton, of course, being what overturned Roe v. Wade. We spoke to an OBGYN and fertility specialist, Dr. Amy Avazadeh, about this, and she says she is horrified by this decision and what it will mean.
Embryos are precious cells. They're very precious. They have the potential to turn into a baby. The potential. But an embryo is not a child, is not a baby. They have a chance to become one. But anyone who knows even the smallest bit about IVF knows that an embryo is a chance for a baby. The concern here is that patients who are doing testing in Alabama, they might be forced to use embryos that they didn't want to use. They might not be allowed to freeze embryos, and they might have to transfer everything they have. It might change how you do IVF, where people will be freezing eggs and only creating embryos enough to transfer so they have none left over. Or what we're seeing now, IVF is going to...
Because they want to ban all this, but then you got this makes me so mad. I'm speechless. And you got these people that abuse children, essay them and everything, and they get out and walk the streets. But you want to ban people that want to love a child? It just makes no fucking sense. It's wild they're doing this.
Halt completely.
Those are some of the concerns that you also brought up. But 11 states have passed laws defining personhood as beginning at fertilization. So should women who are doing IVF or seeking IVF treatment be worried that this Alabama decision may affect them?
I think it's hard to say, right? I mean, so there are some states where personhood it's not clear if it's legally operative. It's sort of a policy that's been declared by the state, but it's unclear how much teeth, how if it has teeth in terms of actually affecting people concretely. But I think, again, because some court had to be first, someone had to be the first to say, we think that a fetus or an embryo is a person. And now that the Alabama Supreme Court has done this, I think we would expect to see either legislators or state courts in equally conservative states with similar personhood policies being more willing to make the same kind of move. So I think this is something that should concern people who are pursuing infertility treatment in all of those states, and indeed elsewhere in the country too.
Does it end with this decision, or is there any legal pathway forward, especially given that Roe v. Wade has been overturned? Does this run afoul at all of any federal rights or other constitutional rights?
It's hard to say, right? I mean, the Alabama Supreme Court was trying pretty hard to make this a state court ruling and to say this was about the interpretation of the state wrongful death of a minor law, which is not something ordinarily that the U.S. Supreme Court would become involved in. You could imagine federal constitutional claims raised by people who want to pursue IVF, but this is a very conservative U.S. Supreme Court that's going to be unlikely to recognize new reproductive rights under federal law, like a right to procreate. So I think while that's theoretically possible, the Alabama Supreme Court is likely to be the last stop in this case.
Mary, you are really an expert on what has happened since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Where would you put this decision in the spectrum of reactions we've seen since the Overton decision?
Well, I think it's a big indicator of what's coming next, right? So I think a lot of Americans believe that when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in the Dobbs decision, that was the end, right? That the people who believed that a fetus or an embryo was a person had won and they would move on to other issues. In fact, I think this decision is a reminder that personhood, right, this idea that a fetus or embryo is a rights holding person, has been a motivating reason for many people to join the anti-abortion movement really since its inception in the 1960s. And I think we're going to see much more of this. So this is sort of a sign of what's to come, in addition to something I think that will have a tremendous effect on people who are seeking to become parents in the state of Alabama.
Mary Ziegler, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
It's heartbreaking, ain't it, truly? I've cried over this. I mean, the ban on abortions was enough. That was bad enough, I know a lot of people don't agree with it, but it's not your body, or your choice. You know what I'm saying? And it's just so much more than just abortion. And they're taking our rights away like we're nothing now, We don't even have women's rights anymore at all. Then you got parents like Adam Montgomery killing sweet little Harmony, It is incredibly sad, and, it's crazy, I'm like, speechless, and it's just really, really sad. It really is. And it's heartbreaking. And it's just gonna get worse. This country is just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. This country in the past 3, 4 years is the worst that it's ever been. Let's see here. Let me get this next one set up for us here. Hey, Sonia. Hey, love. Not at all, truly. Not at all. Like that song, God, we need you now. Sad, ain't it, Sonia?
A third fertility clinic has now shut off IVF services because of the Alabama Supreme Court ruling in that state. The CEO of Infirmary Health says that the decision, quote, left us with no choice but to pause IVF treatments for patients. So many patients are now being left in the dark and in limbo. Here's one.
I've gone through 3 miscarriages, and it honestly felt like a very similar feeling. It doesn't feel very supported here, and now they're just going to make it less accessible, more expensive. They're taking away people's chances, women's chances to have children.
The impact of this Supreme Court decision in Alabama is still being felt. Joining us right now is will be two people who are experiencing this in real time. First with us is Rebecca Matthews, who has been an IVF patient living in Alabama. Her 2 children were born through IVF. And joining us shortly will be Dr. Mamie McLean, who is Rebecca's reproductive doctor, who's helped her through this process. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me. We were talking a little bit in the break. This is as personal, truly, as it gets, because at its core, what this is about is the patients and about how this impacts so many families. What went through your mind when you first heard this news? And what does this feel like for you?
Yeah, I was shocked. I could not believe that this is where we are. After the dust sort of settled of what had happened in the ruling, I started to really worry about what our options were with our remaining frozen embryo going forward, and what we choose to do with that embryo, how that could affect our lives and our family.
Rebecca, IVF has helped you and your husband have 2 children. What does this mean for your journey? What does this mean for you and your family?
IVF is so personal. Infertility is so hard. It is truly nothing anyone would wish upon themselves or anyone they love. So you have to be really strong to do it, mentally and emotionally and even physically, because your body is going to go through it. So to now be told that there are even fewer options available is heartbreaking. And I can't imagine the families right now who are going through an active IVF cycle that is being canceled. My heart breaks for them.
Dr. McLean is joining us now. And doctor, your clinic is one of the facilities who has been forced to halt some IVF treatments because of this ruling. And you wrote an op-ed yesterday, and I want to read, I normally wouldn't do this, I just dive into a question, but I want to read what you wrote off the top because it gets to exactly what Rebecca's talking about, who's been one of your patients. You wrote this: "I just want my baby," she sobbed, having trouble taking a breath. I know, I said. There was nothing else to say. My heart was heavy and I felt powerless since I was now unable to complete the course of treatment that she, her husband, and I agreed to months ago since the loss of their third pregnancy. And that, I assume, is just one of so many families that you've had to talk to. What position does this put you in? What are you hearing from patients?
So the position that it puts me in is an impossible position. As a reproductive endocrinologist, I need to be able to offer the state-of-the-art modern medicine for our patients in Alabama. This ruling makes it impossible for me to offer IVF. This means that my patients won't be able to access the best fertility care in the state, which leads to fewer babies and fewer grandbabies in Alabama.
And Doctor, Rebecca shared with me in the commercial break that of her two children, her little one, her 1-year-old, is named McLean, named after you. I mean, that just, to me, that just hits at everything. How personal this is and the connection that you have with your patients. I mean, talk to me about that and what this journey with Rebecca has been, and now what this means for so many patients like Rebecca for you, Doctor.
So it really is an honor to be able to practice in my specialty. Our relationships are deep, they're intense, and they're long lasting. There truly is no greater gift than helping a couple have a child. We love meeting the grandparents and sharing the news with them. This really is just a far-reaching field. We are worried. Our patients, though, are brave, they're resilient, and they're fighters. And the women of Alabama and the couples in Alabama are not going to stand for this ruling. So we are working as hard as we can to continue to be able to offer advanced fertility care to the couples of Alabama.
You know, Rebecca, another fertility clinic in the state says that it is now planning to send frozen embryos out of state to an off-storage facility. I heard that and you kind of scratch your head like, what does this mean for a family who's in the middle of it? I mean, what would that have meant for you and your family if that was what was presented to you?
Yeah, I've even been asked that question of what we will do with our remaining embryo. Will we move it across state lines? I think ultimately, so much goes into these cycles, so much goes into the process of IVF, and emotionally, we already feel like we're being held back and we're having to wait. When it comes to infertility, we feel like it's one step forward, two steps back at all times. To have this huge bump in the road for these families has to feel debilitating in a way.
And that's such a good point. I mean, the journey so many of my friends have had, setbacks is unfortunately part of so many families' process when it comes to infertility and IVF. And when you think about that it's already such a hard and long enough road, doctor, that you are trying to help your patients go through, it shouldn't be an issue for politics. But the mere fact that IVF has become one in this moment, I don't know, what does that say to you? How do you react to that, doctor?
So in my clinic, this is not a political issue. This is a human issue. This is about having the American right to decide whether to have children, when to have children, and to be able to make the choices with your doctor about how it is best for you to have a child. We know that there are patients considering moving embryos across state lines. That's not in their best interest. In Alabama, we need to be able to offer the most advanced fertility care to our patients and to the citizens of the state. We've actually just heard word that the two largest shipping companies are no longer offering to ship within Alabama. So unfortunately, this new development this morning limits my patient's options even further and is completely unacceptable based on this ruling.
You know, the ruling comes, you hear the news headline, and here's the thing with this one: it's like a cascading effect of fallout, because we're seeing that now with clinics having to stop services, with families having to let this set in. Now you have shipping companies all along the chain that you need in order to really make this miracle happen. It is tough. But thank you both for coming on. Doctor, thank you for what you do. Rebecca, it's wonderful to meet you.
Shit, I thought I was unmuted. It's heartbreaking to watch these people. You got 5 babies, Sonia? Oh. Let's see. Bear with me. Okay, this next thing I'm going to play here, this was a year ago. Let's see. You have 3 girls. I wanted a girl so bad. I got 2 boys. 4 boys and 1 girl. Aw. Your daughters are beautiful, truly. Do you know what your grandbaby is yet? I can't remember if you told me or not. Yeah. I'm not fixed. I can still have children. I never got fixed because I always wanted a girl. And then I just, thank God I did. I don't know. But with all this stuff, I've been thinking really hard of maybe becoming a surrogate. Just one last time, you know, and I don't know. Oh, so your daughter is the baby, Sonia? That's awesome. Yeah, it's got 2 boys. I love them to death, though. See, I wanted a boy, my first one. I wanted a boy, and I got him. The second one, I wanted a girl. And not that I don't love my son, but, you know, it's kind of, you know what I'm saying? All right, so let's go to this next one. This is just something from a year ago when they banned abortions.
Growing battle over the future of abortion rights in this country. As a number of states take steps to ban abortion, some doctors are concerned fertility treatments like IVF could be the next target. They question if a patient's frozen embryos could be defined as unborn children, and if so, what happens if those embryos are discarded. NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton joins us now from a Boston IVF clinic in Massachusetts with the latest. Antonia, good morning to you. So right now, is this decision affecting patients who are currently undergoing IVF treatments at all?
Good morning, Joe. Well, it's certainly affecting their thinking. As of right now,
Now
there are
remember,
no
this was a
laws
year
that
ago.
directly impact
Crazy.
IVF that are going to stop patients from going to their appointments and moving forward with this process. But because new laws are likely going to be introduced by anti-abortion activists or lawmakers in the coming days and months, the patients and providers that I've spoken to say that they're nervous that the legal landscape is going to change. In particular, that there could be personhood laws that define the meeting of sperm and egg, an embryo, as a life. That directly implicates the work that doctors do in labs like the one behind me here, where they not only create, they at times destroy or test these materials. So the patients that I've talked to say that they are moving up their timelines. Some of the women who have already created embryos are planning to use them. In other words, get pregnant sooner than they were originally planning to. Take a listen to a conversation that I had with a woman named Samira Valdez, and she lives in Florida.
Sometimes it takes multiple egg retrievals, multiple embryo transfers, and it's emotionally draining. So if you can imagine now all this coming to play for so many families, we're stressed and we're nervous now. It's very overwhelming. My husband and I were kind of going to wait maybe like 2 or 3 years after my daughter, just to kind of give us time with the one child. But this is definitely making me want to move faster and try to make a decision sooner than later.
Samira, as she described right there, is planning to have her next child now 2 to 3 years earlier than she had initially planned. And not only does that change their family, but that is a significant cost. These procedures cost thousands of dollars. Often insurance programs do not cover it. And so families in this situation are now thinking about, the makeup of their family, but also their budgets. The clinic behind me here, Boston IVF, says that they have been receiving over 50 calls a day from patients who live in red states who are interested in transferring their tissues from those states here to Massachusetts, a blue state where they think that they might be a little bit safer, Joe.
It's not just patients, Antonia. Are some doctors concerned that their work could soon become criminalized? I mean, what did you learn from some of the doctors you spoke with?
That's right. In the event that either a vaguely written bill or someone directly passes a personhood law to define an embryo as a living being, in the event that that moves forward in any state, that would directly criminalize the work that they do here in clinics like this one. And in the state of Oklahoma, where already they have an abortion law that is quite similar to what we saw in Texas, where an individual can sue anyone who they believe has been involved in an abortion. It opens the window for any prosecutor or person who believes that what they think goes on in a clinic like this one amounts to an abortion. They create multiple embryos at a time. They sometimes remove them. Families sometimes ask to destroy them. And so the question is that life? Is that an abortion? And they're nervous that no matter what lawmakers, assure them may be the case, that it would just take one prosecutor or person or a group of lawmakers to see it differently to change the legal landscape. Take a listen to a conversation I had with a doctor, Dr. Reshef in Oklahoma. He works at his own fertility site, and he's preparing for the possibility of lawsuits.
New law in Oklahoma opens the door for lay people to sue anybody that they feel is engaged in abortion. So the annoyance factor from being sued, of course, clearly interferes with my work and my patient's right to reproduce. People that either deliberately or unintentionally, by not knowing the law and not knowing the definitions, will sue us because they perceive that we're committing abortions. I think that's a travesty, all right.
Doctors are already meeting with their lawyers to determine what kinds of new programs, tissue transfers they might do. Is this going to cost them money, or are they going to charge the patients out of pocket for all of this? So they are scrambling to try to secure their industry, essentially, over the next couple weeks and months, Joe.
Clearly a lot of questions on a lot of minds right now. Antonia Hilton in Massachusetts, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's
See here, what I want to go back. 8 babies, sunshine. Wow. A few abortions. If you don't mind me asking, how long ago was that? Because, see, I don't know. I don't believe in having multiple abortions. I don't believe in people using it as birth control. I don't believe in having an abortion after you're so far along. I'm not judging you, Sunshine Love. I'm not at all. I promise you. My heart's with you, love. And I get it. But I know this girl, and she's had like 7 abortions. And she used to be a friend of mine, and I actually distanced myself from her because of that. I had good pregnancies too, truly. Oh, I get that, Sunshine. I get that. Okay, I said I was going to tell my story here. I'm not going to tell all of it, but I also have had an abortion. And I think about it all the time. I'm at peace with it. I went to therapy and stuff over it, and I only had one in a very fucked up situation and homeless. And yeah. This was back in 2018 when I had my one and only abortion. And and I had it done in Texas because that's where I was at the time. And when they banned them in Texas and stuff, it kind of, I don't know, it was a weird feeling. Hey, Frank, you must have just got my message. You never believed in it, Sonia. I respect that. I respect anybody's opinion on what they believe in, what they don't believe in, and support and stuff, you know. But you never know until you're in that situation. I never believed in it until I was in that situation to where I kind of had no choice. And people can drag me for it all they want. I don't care. I don't care. Judge me. But yeah. And I'm sure the lurkers and even people in here, you probably more than likely love someone that has had an abortion and you don't even know it. They're more common, or they were, and women just don't talk about that kind of thing, you know? This is the first time publicly I've ever talked about mine. Like, and if they had banned them when I had mine, I don't know what I would have done. So I was so depressed, I didn't even live. I didn't know what to do. And I probably would not be alive today if they were banned when I had mine. I agree, Sunshine. I absolutely agree. They're taking our rights away, but they're not doing nothing to help anybody, you know? And now they're taking people's that want children. And I mean, I wanted mine, but I'm not going to go into details. But yes, I had an abortion. Oh, I know you're not judging me, Sonia. I know you love me. But you know, there is people that do judge, and they probably love more than likely they love someone too that has had an abortion and they don't know it. I love you, Sonia. I love you truly. Sunshine, I totally agree with you. They're taking their rights away, but they're not doing nothing else. You know, it's not right. Especially this IVF. This has really got me pissed. More than the abortion part. Because it's just it's like apples and oranges, you know, they're just, it's not right. And my heart absolutely fucking breaks for these people. And like I said, ever since this, I've seriously thought about being a surrogate for someone. Seriously. And are they going to cut that out too, you know, or what are they going to do next? What's next they're going to take from us? Oh, sunshine. I love y'all. I debated and debated if I was even going to tell, you know, my little bit of my story, but I just want people to know, you know, you never know what someone's going through, or you know what I mean? You never fucking know. You don't have a uterus. I didn't get fixed or anything, and well, there's really 2 reasons I didn't get fixed, because all of the women on my mom's side, every time they got fixed, like their tubes tied and stuff, they ended up having a hysterectomy not long after. And I wanted another child at the time, because I had my kids, I had my first one when I was 19 and then early 20s, you know. Um, thank you, truly. But I just thank God, you know, like that's the only other time that I did get pregnant. It's not like I was out here just, I'm not a whore though, you know. I don't, yeah. But you're not alone. Anyone. Replay people if anybody even gives a fuck about this. Some people could care less, you know, but more women, I don't even think a lot of women even know what's going on with Alabama and shit. And see, truly, I was afraid of that, you know, and like I seen my mom go through it, and hey, Wondering Hearts, yes, absolutely. It is illegal to discard them, yes. But I think I got a clip saved I'm gonna play too. There's this, there's some couples. I'm sure there's more than what I seen, but I watched this couple adopted embryos. Does that make sense? Like, these people had frozen embryos and they were done with them or whatever, and couples that needed them adopted them, kind of. Oh yeah, you can't discard the embryo. The embryo is a child in Alabama's eyes. Ain't that fucked up? Well, abandon them, they can't, they don't even have access to them now. They can't, they have no control over them now. All these frozen embryos are just sitting there, and you can't, nope, the owners or whatever, the parents can't touch them at all. They have no say so whatsoever ever again over those embryos. Fucked up, ain't it? Okay, this next one here, we're going to keep going.
Hi, I'm Maggie McGrath, the editor of Forbes Women, and today we are talking about a decision out of the Alabama Supreme Court that says that frozen embryos are in fact children. Here to break this down for us is Harry Nelson. He's a lawyer and the founder of the largest healthcare-focused law firm in Los Angeles. Harry, thanks so much for joining us. This case has been fascinating. I've already been in 10 conversations with different women about it. I think everyone wants to know what's going on. But for those who are not following the ins and outs of the Alabama Supreme Court, can you explain to us what this ruling is and how it came about?
Sure. So what happened here is that two couples who had used a fertility clinic in Alabama for in vitro fertilization IVF services had stored embryos that were being stored in a freezer in the embryo lab at this fertility center. And apparently it seems that a patient, somebody else who was in the facility at some point, went into an unauthorized area, went into the embryo lab, and they were able to open the freezer, and they took out a tray that contained the embryos of these two couples. And apparently it was so cold from the freezer that it gave them an immediate freezer burn. They dropped it on the ground, and the embryos were destroyed in that process. And so these two families both brought loss.
And like I was saying earlier about this, I don't think everybody was in here. I would be heartbroken if that happened to me. You know, they dropped my embryos. But how do they think hundreds of people and families feel now because of them?
Lawsuit together against the fertility clinic, making a claim under an Alabama law known as the Wrongful Death to Minors Act, essentially claiming that they had lost children, that their children had been killed, effectively equivalent of involuntary manslaughter in a civil damages case against the fertility center. So that was what was at stake. And the lower courts said, no, this law doesn't apply. There's a big difference between the death of a minor, a child, or an infant, and an embryo. But the Supreme Court of Alabama disagreed and said this is absolutely a life equivalent to a child. The fact that it was, in the words of the court, extrauterine, meaning that it was not born, it was not in a uterus, it was not developed into any level of fetal development beyond a few days, which is what the fertility centers had claimed, was sufficient to make it a life. So this is a really radical decision. It's the first time an American court, a Supreme Court in any state, has taken the position that an embryo is no different than a life. It has profound implication, right? Alabama already is one of these zero abortion states, completely restricting abortion. But now that decision has made a logical extension into the whole world of fertility. So it's questionable whether fertility doctors will want to or feel comfortable to continue to practice, because it has all kinds of implications for what you can and can't do with embryos and what risks doctors and patients may be under in this area.
I want to get into those implications, but the first question that comes to my mind is twofold. One of which is, did scientists or doctors testify during this process? Like, have we heard from the medical community about how they think of this ruling?
I believe in the lower courts there was testimony. There was medical testimony, I believe, to clarify, on that issue. But the courts basically stopped I believe it was submitted in affidavit form and there was never a trial in these cases, because the lower courts did not believe that you could have a wrongful death of a minor by an embryo. So we haven't gotten that far.
Okay, because my overarching question is this a politically motivated decision that we're seeing here?
Well, I think a lot of observers are, thinking that while it is a tragedy, certainly any parent who is, struggling with fertility issues and going to fertility clinics for in vitro fertilization obviously would experience a loss when you had these embryos. But to treat that loss as as equivalent to the death of a child does not seem to most observers like the reaction of that most parents would have. And it does seem like a calculated political choice to bring this case. There are a lot of people who believe, and you can count me among them, who believe that this case was brought to make a political point. And the Supreme Court of Alabama in some ways just made a logical move from its previous decisions, in the abortion space to fertility. And the question, of course, is how much, not only what does that mean for fertility, but what does it mean for everything else? What does this mean for contraception? And how far are we going to go down this chain of treating, embryos as life?
I was going to ask you those questions, but just to understand where we are in the legal process, is there a chance this gets repealed? Is there a chance this gets undone in some kind of way? And/or will we see this at the Supreme Court level, the federal Supreme Court?
So it's a good question. There could be a petition to ask the United States Supreme Court to hear this case. Certainly the Fertility Center has the right to petition the Supreme Court. And the question is whether it's going to be deemed worthwhile by, whether there's a chance that the Supreme Court would hear this and whether the Supreme Court would actually hear it. And I suspect that we will see a petition to the Supreme Court, but I have a feeling that the Supreme Court, that a majority of justices on the Supreme Court do not want to hear this case. That the only justices who would favor hearing a case like these are the ones who have taken more extreme positions, who are sort of, probably supportive privately of this decision. We just saw earlier this week that the Supreme Court declined to take a University of Virginia case on the area of affirmative action, where it looks like 6 of the 9 justices currently don't want to revisit an issue that they just did in the last term, where they already laid out some pretty clear standards on race-based college admissions and did not want to come back and turn back to the subject. And my suspicion is that the Supreme Court has no appetite to touch this. So I think that, practically speaking, this is the law of the land in Alabama, and anybody thinking about getting fertility services or providing them needs to treat this as sort of a final decision.
This is the law of the land in Alabama. What does this mean? Let's talk about the couples and people who have embryos currently on ice in Alabama. What should they do? Does this mean they need to immediately proceed with trying to have children, to use the embryos? Should they move the embryos to another state? And can they even move to another state? Or is that something that could be criminalized under this ruling?
Those are some great questions. I think, I mean, my general feeling is that we haven't yet seen sort of there's been a fear, and I share it, that we may see the end of fertility centers operating, feeling comfortable to operate in Alabama. I'm confident that if it comes to that, if that does happen, there will be arrangements made for the safe transport of embryos. And so I don't think that any parents with embryos that are currently there need to take urgent action to move out of state. So I think there is time to see what's going to happen, and I think there will, under any circumstances, right? Frankly, think about it. If centers did not transport them safely, then they would be committing widespread killing under the definition of this new law. And on your second question of remind me was I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I apologize.
Well, I guess if a couple is assessing their options, is it like, should they immediately
travel,
have kids?
right?
Should they immediately implant, or what should they?
Yeah,
how
so
are they?
I would say, look, so yeah, on the issue of immediate decision, I think people have time to assess. Given that these embryos are given the sanctity of life, it's hard to imagine that people will be denied the opportunity or that there will be destruction. Just the opposite, right? The risks for the doctors involved would be something going wrong. So it may be that doctors will not want to handle them and be forced to transport them to another state. On the issue of travel is a really interesting issue. Alabama was one of the states that threatened, certain state officials threatened to prosecute women who traveled out of state for abortions. We've seen a hard pushback on that. And also, it's very clear that the right to travel is a fundamental right that all Americans have. And that includes the right to travel for healthcare decisions. And I suspect that, it appears that the threats being made by Alabama and other states, state officials in other states, to prosecute is really hollow, and that there really is it's outrageous that the people are being threatened in the abortion context for traveling to pursue their legal options elsewhere. And I think we're going to see the same. I expect the same here. Parents should not be afraid. Although this is the problem we're going to see is that what's happening is a lot of cost is being imposed on these families. 1 in 6 families, trying to have children using fertility services is the number I saw. So it's really
That was going to be my follow-up question. If someone has not yet frozen their eggs or embryos but lives in Alabama, what's your advice legally for them? Should they even start the process in Alabama, or how do they make that decision under this new ruling?
I think it's a hard decision, and I think if people have the resources, to be the financial wherewithal to go to another state where this is not likely to be a controversial issue, that this decision makes it a good one to go out of state and to just begin the process in a state where you don't have to worry about decisions like this coming out of the Supreme Court. So I think, unfortunately, there are going to be many Alabamans who don't have that choice, who don't have that luxury, and I think are going to be really have their options limited here and maybe forced to figure out what's available. And that's just a sort of a sad feature of this decision.
Now, this ruling came down on Friday, so it's relatively new, but do we know anything about the enforcement mechanisms here? Because I was talking to our healthcare reporter about what if there's a natural disaster and a storage facility loses power? So in the case that was brought to the Alabama Supreme Court, it's these couples whose embryos were destroyed through human error. But what happens if a hurricane, a flood, a tornado comes through and there is damage to embryos? Is the storage facility liable? Is the couple liable? Do we even know the answers to these questions?
No, it's a great question. Look, we have a concept built into American law of what's called force majeure, or an act of God, that some parties are not responsible for. But I think your question raises a great point, which is, where is the line on negligence, right? Negligence is the theory in American law of what is a reasonable person or reasonable business that's, for example, doing storage. What are they expected to do? And when did they fall below the standard of care that they're expected to meet and breach their obligations so that they're financially responsible for damages that they cause? So I think that is a real question, right? No one's going to be blamed if it's a freak occurrence where we can call it an act of God. But there are going to be plenty of things, plenty of cases where someone behaved negligently. I mean, and not to take this too far on an extreme, but I have the one question this raises for me relates to miscarriage, right? I mean, the question that we've had a whole conversation about the way that health systems, hospitals have changed the way they deliver miscarriage care because of the fear that a miscarriage may resemble or be close to an abortion. But I think this raises the question of whether women who are pregnant can engage in activity that endangers the pregnancy and is a basis for charges of manslaughter. That is a perfectly logical extension of this ruling and should give pause to anybody who is concerned about reproductive rights.
You mentioned contraception earlier, and I think I'm just going to mirror the question back to you. This ruling raises concerns over miscarriage, and to my mind, knowing how contraception works, does this threaten contraception in Alabama or in the United States more broadly?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this decision today about the status of an embryo doesn't directly touch upon it, but it's very clear. We're already seeing evidence in not only in Alabama, but in other abortion restricted states that healthcare providers, pharmacies are nervous, for example, about prescription drugs that can be given for contraception, for like and both before and after, about their implications.
Hey, sis, you didn't have to end your live. I love you. If you go back, about 10 minutes or so, I told my story a little bit. I didn't go into a lot of detail, but yes. I've had an abortion. But y'all know that in Alabama, you can still get contraceptive. Bama roll, tide roll. Hey, baby. It is scary, Wandering Hearts. And like the frozen embryos they got in the hospitals or whatever, they can't touch them. Can't do nothing because if you get rid of them, they're going to get you for manslaughter, murder. It's crazy. It's not right. Okay, we're going to finish watching this here, but there's another one here I want to play. And then we'll come back to this.
Conceive naturally was definitely a odd feeling. Once it wasn't happening, it was stressful.
Almost everyone knows somebody who is going through the challenge of infertility.
Is my body just not made to be pregnant? I don't know anymore.
This is it. Hello? Honestly, as corny and cheesy as it is, it was completely love at first sight.
It was.
I promise to create and support a family with you in a household filled with laughter, patience, understanding, and love.
We pretty much talked about having kids on our first date. We decided that, we both wanted to have kids. We wanted to start as soon as we were married.
First trying to conceive naturally was definitely an odd feeling, considering 38 years of my life I've been trying to do the exact opposite. Once it wasn't happening, it was definitely stressful.
That's when our doctor told us that I had an extremely low AMH, which is your ovarian reserve. They can't make more eggs come. She did tell us there's many options, there's many things out there, and that we were going to try.
We decided to be realists and not bankrupt ourselves.
We can afford to do this once, meaning once as in our own IVF, and go from there.
With IVF, we mimic what happens inside a woman's body, but we do it in the laboratory. We combine the sperm with the eggs after the egg retrieval. We then check to see if there's been fertilization. We then transfer an embryo or embryos into the uterus, and then 12 days later, we get a pregnancy test.
We're getting ready for the progesterone shot.
Step one with the IVF process is where the female partner takes injections to stimulate egg follicles to grow in her ovaries.
Oh boy. It kind of became a bonding thing every night. He always gives like a little massage.
A woman can take upwards of an average of 100 to 120 injections.
We were on a pretty heavy medicine protocol because I wasn't getting the eggs. We went into the retrieval thinking we were getting 3 eggs. And they were like, we got 5 eggs. You did amazing. And we were like on cloud 9. And then we got a phone call the next day letting us know that 3 of the eggs fertilized.
We have 3 potential lives in a petri dish. And then to me, it felt like a sick horribly that one every day we got worse news and worse news and worse news.
One of the embryos had completely stopped growing. And the last embryo was not doing well. It didn't look like it was going to make it, but they wanted to give it one more day. And sorry, I'm gonna cry still thinking about it. That was the hardest thing ever. It was literally like losing our children. The grieving process was that we knew we were doing this once, like I said. So to us, that was, that was our shot at our own biological child. I proposed 3 different options to Chris, 1 being traditional adoption, 2 being egg donors, and 3 being embryo donation.
Basically, somebody else had gone through the IVS process and had leftovers. That really spoke to me, and it just made me feel good about all the people that would be getting helped in the process of this.
Embryo donation, even though that's what I wanted the most, I was worried that Chris would not be on board for it because it would be removing his DNA from our child.
No, Carrie hates when I say this, but part of me said, well, it's only fair. It's not Carrie's DNA, so why should it be mine?
Embryo donation is the best chance that we have at being able to carry a child. So this is Becky and Jim's profile. Becky, she sent me the first message and she was like, would like to talk more about you. We have 2 male embryos. She always says that we're the ones doing her the favor. She wanted us to be their parents and she wants her boys to have a chance at a great life. We went down to the clinic in West Virginia. We have this tank that looks like R2D2, that's what they call it. And they put everything inside, the paperwork and all that. And on our way, we went on our first family road trip. This is happening. Now we have the embryos. Our first transfer was not successful. We are going to be transferring our last remaining embryo, and we're feeling hopeful. We are here at our last monitoring appointment to see if my lining is thick enough and ready for our embryo transfer. I'm feeling really, really nervous, but I'm also feeling really positive. Last appointment went pretty well and everything was on track.
Well, we do have a nice, beautiful embryo ready to go. We just want to be sure your body is indeed ready.
Okay.
All right, lots of deep pressure. So ultrasound, looking at everything.
How's everything looking?
Uterus.
It's uterus, yeah, exactly right. You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm just getting nervous.
Well,
did it get smaller?
We'll take a look at that in a second. I just want to take a look at everything and I'll give you my best thoughts on that. Okay, you can start. For 1 dimensions, it was look a little bit smaller. So we wanted to get dressed. Let me review all the lab tests again. I'll come back and talk to you a little bit about everything. I know you want this to finish, but we want it to finish and be successful.
And be successful. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
If there's any remote possibility that we could be
not successful
because we went prematurely or we failed to address a potential drop in the hormone, then maybe this is a good time for us to reassess that.
My lining last week when I came on Thursday was at a 13. Today it went down to an 8. So we decided to do 2 more days of estrogen and also increase it. So as much as it's frustrating to wait and upsetting, it's easier to wait. So sorry, it's really hard with just all the hormones on top of it. It's like
it's the right thing to do because something has changed that shouldn't have changed.
it's also hard when, you know, I've put my body through so much already for the past 20 days. You can't prepare because
Alabama. That's sad. Plus both of them, you know, both of the mamas. I was saying earlier, you know, because I can still have children, and since all this stuff came up, and I thought really hard about being a surrogate for someone, you know. It's really, really fucked up what they're doing here.
every time it's a roller coaster.
My lining is not getting any thicker, even with the added estrogen. It's really just hard because, you know, the obvious reasons of putting myself through all of this, the emotional stress, the physical stress, the estrogen patches, the inserts, the pain. Is my body just not made to be pregnant? I don't know anymore.
Today is our transfer day. So we're here at the doctor's office getting ready to get started.
So the donor mom sent us a care package. She sent this really cool shirt for me to wear for transfer day so I could also be in the spirit of things.
I'm constant in communication with Rebecca, the donor. She sends me messages probably on a daily basis. This morning I woke up to one just saying she was sending us love, thinking of us the whole day, sending us positive vibes. It's gonna work, right?
Yeah.
We have to be positive.
For those of you who don't really know what's going on with this video here, or you do, this couple right here pretty much adopted embryos, frozen embryos from somebody else. And I wish Alabama would do that, besides just letting those embryos sit there and do nothing. She can't get rid of them. Hey, Eve Love, how are you? Alabama. I get it. I do. And then she was probably, you know, feeling bad, blaming herself because of the other family she was, you know what I'm saying? Like, I couldn't imagine, and I'm so very, very sorry. It's heartbreaking. But they need to let people at least adopt these embryos that people are never going to use, you know? This whole situation's fucked up.
We're ready?
Ready?
Let's go.
Okay. We've been through a very long journey to get us here today. This is the last embryo of this donation. So this will definitely be the last try for at least a while.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Valium is starting to kick in a little bit.
Yeah,
Great.
I feel pretty relaxed. It's been ups and downs. I mean, even just for this transfer alone, it's been canceled twice. And now we're here, you know, only 6 weeks later. So, you know, we just have to have faith that there's a reason. There's a reason why we're going through this. And hopefully that reason is about to be put inside me.
Oh, lots of depression. I'm sorry for the bladder.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
Okay. All right. That's expected. You're doing great.
What I've learned about my wife is that she is tough. If the roles were reversed, we wouldn't be doing fertility treatments because I don't think I could do it.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Okay. You can actually see the white streak there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yay. Honey, we got a little baby in there.
I know.
I wish you guys only good thoughts and good
Thank
luck.
you.
It's been quite a journey with this process.
The things we go through. It'll all be worth it. I hope he's finding a little home in there already.
They need to let these embryos in Alabama be adopted out. That ain't right.
Today is the day that we'll find out if we're pregnant and if our transfer was successful. So right now we are waiting for the phone call.
I really have no clue what's going to happen. I know what I want to happen. And I'm just focusing on hopefully going to get a positive phone call, and just really, really nervous.
This experience has never been, a positive one. So I'm still kind of find myself
wandering hearts. I feel you, love. I do. This really has pissed me off. It's not right, y'all. I get the abortion, banning that, which I don't agree with it, and that pissed me off too. But the IVF is a totally different ballgame, and they said that other states are following suit with this, what Alabama has done, and it's really, like I said, my dad is from Alabama, lived there his whole life. Bama, no. Well, I was like, I'm a huge diehard Alabama football fan, and I'm going to disown my own state. This ain't right, y'all. And Alabama is, like I've been saying, is like 10 years behind every other state in the United States. They really are.
Talking to the embryo, to, our hopeful son in there. I keep kind of, sorry, I'm going to start to cry. I keep kind of talking to him and just telling him that, hopefully if he can hear me, if he could stay and meet us. I'm more terrified of feeling as sad as I did last time. And I know it's going to feel even worse this time because there is no more embryo sitting there. So this is it. Hello.
Hi, Carrie.
Hey.
It's Courtney. I got the results from the blood this morning,
Yes.
and I'm thrilled to tell you it was positive.
Oh my God. Shut up. Are you serious?
Just let it all sink in.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Congratulations.
All right. Thank you.
All
All right. Bye. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Oh my God. I can't believe it. I feel like I'm gonna throw up on top of everything.
You happy?
Yes, Bama. Alabama just banned IVF and frozen embryos and all that. It's already done. It's already banned. It's fucked up, ain't it?
Yes. This is Brian Luke Morgan. He was born on January 24, 2019, and he is our perfect little miracle.
We finished the race, and now we can just chill out and enjoy victory.
Who's that? What happened? It's Mama. Who said you were wide awake and okay? That doesn't look okay. Look, Mama. There are a lot of women out there that I know do not end up with a success story. And I hold that in my heart every day. I know how blessed I am for it to come out the other side. Because I know not everyone does. And it definitely is a hard thing. Sorry. Are you the best boy ever? I think so.
He's just awesome. I thought I was signing up for something much more difficult. I think he appreciates us bringing him to this world, so he's really taking it easy on us.
I truly believe that we are better parents because of it. We are grateful every minute of the day. Everyone keeps saying, oh, this period's going to be so hard. You're not going to sleep. You're not going to that. And I think the reason why it's been easier for us is because we don't care. We're just so happy to have him that it's like, okay, if I have to sleep a little less, or I can't eat yet, or I haven't showered today, or any of those things, it's like, none of it matters because we have him. In order to go through this process, you have to be strong in every aspect. It does not mean that you cannot cry. It does not mean that you don't break down, but it means that you're going to keep fighting the fight. That's what us fertility warriors do. We keep fighting and we don't give up until there's a sweet baby in our arms.
Bama, we women don't have any rights anymore. And other states are following suit and jumping on the bandwagon with this. Okay, and this one here is another IVF patient speaking out.
This is a good one. You want to look at the picture from when you got to meet Moana? Yeah. So this is our daughter's room that will hopefully be a nursery again one day in the future. We hope to bring another baby home here. There's Moana.
35-year-old Kimberly feels like time is running out, and every day that goes by, her frustration only grows.
Do you feel like there is a sense of urgency around this moment?
Yeah. You know, I do feel like there's a sense of urgency, not just for me, but for numerous other women.
In a perfect world, Kimberly should be just a few hours away from her fourth and final attempt at IVF, her last chance to get pregnant. But she's not, after a number of fertility clinics in Alabama all canceled procedures.
Do you feel like you are missing your final opportunity to possibly expand your family?
Yeah, I will fight for this embryo. This embryo is coming home to us one way or another, whether it's here or it's somewhere else. I will do whatever I have to get this embryo.
She is just one of potentially hundreds, even thousands of Alabama women desperate for answers after the state Supreme Court issued an unprecedented ruling that frozen embryos are considered children.
I definitely think that this ruling is a slap in the face. No one knows how to take care of their children better than a mama.
Now the growing backlash across the country fears this could go beyond Alabama.
This is going to be the playbook. We are so concerned about the spillover into other states and how this particular ruling in Alabama is going to set a precedent.
How does someone else get to dictate what I say, what I want for my family?
It's even more, I think, confusing now. Be taking this medicine and doing all this work for nothing.
Honestly, the impact is so far-reaching. First and foremost, there are fewer babies in Alabama.
The pressure for answers and action to get families back on track.
We're pumped full of hormones, and so we want to fight this and get to be able to have our children.
You want to turn it around like that?
You are someone who has struggled with fertility for years.
Yeah, I've known since I was 20 years old. Infertility was most likely going to be an issue for me. So I cannot wait to meet you, my baby.
In college, Kimberly was diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis. That meant getting pregnant naturally was virtually impossible.
Love always, mommy. My doctors and I have been working since 2008 to give my body the best chance at being able to build a family.
She and her husband, Brandon, reached out to Alabama Fertility and met Dr. Mamie McLean.
IVF is our most successful treatment. It's a treatment that has been around for decades, and our field has been able to perfect it.
From a medical perspective, what is an embryo?
An embryo is a fertilized egg.
238,000 families in the U.S. rely on IVF every year, often freezing multiple embryos to increase their chances of a successful pregnancy.
So tell us what you're doing.
They had their first child in 2021.
Is that your favorite color today?
And last year, they decided to try again, but it became a year of heartbreak.
Losing a pregnancy for the first time is obviously going to shake you and be difficult. When you look up the statistics, the chances of having 2 miscarriages back to back, low statistics.
I'll be honest with you, I can't really, I can't really talk about it.
It was hard and it was devastating. And the weeks after that, especially the second loss, were extremely hard and devastating.
And yet they were determined. One more embryo, one more chance. The process is extensive, exhausting, and expensive.
It's probably close to about $50,000. If you add up gas money, lost wages, etc., obviously that pushes it.
Everything was shaping up for round 4. The transfer on track scheduled for Tuesday when the news broke.
The unprecedented ruling tonight.
More clinics now pausing their IVF services.
The decision stemmed from a case where 3 couples sued a clinic for wrongful death after their embryos were destroyed. The Alabama Supreme Court ruled 8-1. The Chief Justice, in his concurring opinion, cited the Bible, writing, "Human life cannot be wrongfully destroyed without incurring the wrath of a holy God."
Whether we consider these embryos our babies and we feel a sense of responsibility to them, it was a sweeping decision. I just don't think the people understood all the consequences of what was happening.
Within days, the University of Alabama Health System announced it would stop IVF treatments. The next day, Dr. McLean and her partners came to the same heart-wrenching decision.
We realized we had no other choice. My colleagues and I have not slept since this ruling came out. We are being physically affected by this ruling because of the stress and the anguish that's put on our patients.
Did you think about the impact that was going to have immediately?
The very first conversation I had to have was with a longtime patient who has had 2 miscarriages over the past year. They have 1 embryo left. And she was prepped and ready. We've been working for 3 months to get to transfer. Called her to tell her that I had to cancel her transfer.
So we've talked to Kimberly. We know how desperately she wants this family.
Kimberly in particular began sobbing and said, I just want my baby. I just want my baby.
I have the clinic phone number saved on my phone, and the phone started ringing and it said Alabama Fertility Specialists, and my heart sank.
That's when I was like, oh no. So we pulled over and, went through the whole thing.
And she said, your transfer is being canceled. You need to stop all of your medications. And I mean, when she finally said the words is when it hit me, and I'm just sobbing in the back of the car, but I was just heartbroken.
Canceling the transfer is costly, not just in money, but in time lost.
Really, the biggest question is, what should I do next? And I don't have an answer for that.
So this is my medication box. This is Lupron, and this is a daily injection of Lupron. This is my estrogen. And then, as always, in infertility, you have all your supplements. And typically when I share with people what all goes into it, they're just shocked.
Almost immediately, the national spotlight turned to Alabama.
Embryos to me are babies. When you talk about an embryo, you are talking about, to me, that's a life.
In an interview with NBC, Republican candidate for president Nikki Haley referred to her own fertility journey, at first seeming to agree with the state court decision, but eventually said she supports fertility treatments. On Friday, Donald Trump said he supports IVF and called on Alabama lawmakers to find a way to preserve it.
Senator Tuberville, do you have a moment to talk about the IVF rulings?
Today, I went looking for Tommy Tuberville, the Republican senator from Alabama.
I just came back from Alabama. I talked to one woman. She's on her last embryo transfer. It was scheduled for tomorrow. And now she has to start all over. Is that acceptable to you?
Well, not really. No, I want everybody, if they want kids, they can't have it, and that's the only way they can have it, I want them to be able to use that.
So to be clear, you believe it's the wrong move?
Wrong move by the Supreme Court. Yes.
You do. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the time, Senator.
Vice President Kamala Harris put the blame for the Alabama court decision squarely on the overturning of Roe versus Wade.
The previous president of the United States was clear in his intention to hand-pick 3 Supreme Court justices who would overturn the protections of Roe v. Wade. And he did it.
I don't know if it was the intended consequence of the case, but I do think it was an intended consequence of the overturn of Roe v. Wade.
Rebecca Matthews is worried about the fallout from all of this.
I do not think embryos are children. I think that embryos are the hope of a life. I think that embryos are the hope that you hold in your heart for your family. But I do not equate our embryo to my 2 children that I currently have.
She also went to Dr. McLean to expand her family. Both her kids are IVF babies.
Isn't it ironic that we are in this place where this community of families who want nothing more than to have a baby and to create life are being told that not only can they not create life, they're also being called murderers. The people who want it more than anything in the world and would just do about anything for it are being told no.
After spending more than $200,000 in IVF treatments and surrogacy, Rebecca says her family is now complete, but she has 1 more embryo left in storage. But that's not free either.
Either leave them frozen forever or potentially risk criminal charges. Alabama is a pro-family state. This is not a pro-family ruling. It is hard enough to figure out what we're going to do with our embryos when we are done family planning and when we are done having children without adding the government into the situation.
The Alabama Attorney General says he will not prosecute IVF families, but that doesn't address the civil side of the law. The governor and state lawmakers are working to come up with a solution, but that could take time, leaving so many families in limbo.
My message is that we have to speak up. I never imagined that this would be our reality here. And we're concerned that this will happen in other states, which will threaten my field as well as future generations of Americans.
Later this week, Dr. McLean, Rebecca, and Kimberly will all head to Montgomery to put more pressure on lawmakers at the state capitol to take action.
It's going to be hard until Dr. McLean can call me back and say, Kimberly, we're set. We're ready to go. It's going to be tough until then.
With all that uncertainty, are you still hopeful?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have to be hopeful. You know, I posted this morning on my social media that I was going on Wednesday to Montgomery, and I've had numerous people contact me, you know, wanting to go with me. We're going to find a solution to this.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel.
Kind of leaves you speechless on it. It's like, what the fuck do you say to this? What can you do? There's nothing. This has had me so upset. It's just not right. I could not imagine what these women and men, the families are going through. It's and what about the ones that was like in the process, of doing all that, and then bam, oh, it's crazy. Let's see. Just a second. If they're considering these embryos children, then these people should be able to file income taxes on them, get child support on them, or you know what I mean? Like, this ain't right. Not right at all. Like I said, I don't agree with them banning abortions. But when they done this really fucked me up. And there's nothing we can do. It's what sucks. Right, Wondering Hearts. I mean, truly, I've been, ever since it came out, I know how I'm feeling, and I've never been through something like that with the IVF. I cannot imagine what these families are feeling, y'all. Could you imagine finally being able to have the chance to be parents and just having that ripped away from you? And your embryos just sit in that hospital. Just sit there. You can't touch them. You don't own those anymore. They can't get rid of them. They can't do nothing with them. It's not right. It's not right.
Came from all across Alabama.
I want to keep fighting for my embryo and hopefully get a solution to this soon.
Ready to fight for the right to grow their families.
I want to let the legislators know that the world is watching. Our country is watching.
My husband and I have been trying to expand our family for the last 3 years.
Many of these people left in agonizing limbo, blindsided after the Alabama Supreme Court shocked the country, ruling that frozen embryos created during IVF are considered children.
We call on the state of Alabama to provide immediate, complete, and permanent access to IVF care for the women and families of Alabama.
It's one thing to have this pro-life, pro-choice discussion. It's another to deal with it with IVF, because all we want to do is create life.
Now the threats of potential wrongful death lawsuits keeping 3 main fertility clinics in the state on pause.
We wanted protection for patients and for clinics. We wanted full access and permanent access to IVF care in Alabama.
The decision doesn't make IVF illegal in any way, but it makes it very legally risky to provide IVF services because there's a possibility of the destruction of embryos anytime you participate in IVF.
This rally outside the state capitol intended to push Alabama lawmakers to find a solution. With hundreds of thousands of Americans seeking IVF every year, what happens here could create a ripple effect for families all across the country. Families like Brittany Norman's.
How much does every day matter right now?
It's really important.
Brittany is in the middle of her first round of IVF, scheduled for an embryo transfer in about 2 weeks.
How much do you feel like the rest of the country is looking at Alabama in this moment right now?
I think it's a lot. I don't think I really realized how much this was affecting other states starting to look at what do we want to do with IVF, and if they've banned it in Alabama, can we ban it in our state, or how do we not ban it?
Let's see what we got. This is the one we have to do at lunchtime.
The process to get to this point has been intense and expensive for Brittany and her husband, Ralph.
So we have to mix these up.
And they want you to use the big needle to get the stuff. And then these are the
This is
small
good.
ones that
Oh, yeah,
for
what's in
these shots.
They're plowing ahead, starting the final rounds of medication ahead of her scheduled procedure.
You're tired, super bloated, headaches from hormones, more stressed, and then you add on a Supreme Court ruling that you really have no control over. It's even more, I think, confusing now. Of you just don't know. Are you doing all this? Are you taking this medicine and doing all this work for nothing?
The couple has struggled to have children for years. They managed to have their daughter thanks to fertility treatments back in 2019. But after that, heartbreak after heartbreak.
I mean, we know you can get pregnant, but you have 3 miscarriages. Even if you get pregnant, there's nothing exciting for us because we're nervous for, 9 months.
Yeah. It's been 2 years of now we try this, now we'll do this, now we have to wait on this. It's a lot of waiting.
It gets pretty defeating, you know.
Now they're hoping IVF can help them have the second child they're so desperate to add to their family.
I just turned 35, so 35 is a big trigger for, it's already probably a higher risk. And then with age, so it's, time is of the essence, I think, we would like to get this done soon. We're sort of the light at the end of the tunnel of this process. And then it kind of, got dark again.
It's definitely a race against time.
Yeah. I feel like the embryos these are our hopeful babies, and hopefully they can turn into babies. But right now it's just cells.
This isn't the first time politics and court decisions have impacted their fertility journey. Back in the summer of 2022, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, Brittany had a miscarriage and needed surgery to clear her uterus. But they weren't sure they could do that in Alabama, which had passed an abortion ban.
So we were worried, well, are we going to have to go somewhere else to have the D&C? And, fortunately, they kept doing them. But that was, twice now we've had pretty big legal events happen that make us sort of hang in the balance.
Yeah. It's like you hear about things and like, man, that's terrible. But then you're directly affected by it. It's a whole new ball game.
Now the uncertainty is turning into anger.
Hopefully the legislature or somebody can repair this ruling, but this is the worst case scenario. This is like the fire department showing up to put your house out, but they use a flamethrower instead of a fire hose is what they've done.
Since the Alabama Supreme Court ruling, there's been growing backlash.
I anticipate having a bill on my desk very shortly.
Lawmakers have introduced multiple bills that would give civil and criminal immunity to doctors who provide IVF. Those bills being debated today as women went office to office in the State House, wearing orange shirts for infertility awareness. Brittany and Ralph listening as lawmakers debate their future.
Do you feel like lawmakers understand how urgent it is for them to find a solution here?
I think if they didn't before today, I think they do now. I think that they realize this impacts a lot of people.
It's hard to know what the Alabama Supreme Court would make of a new law, if in fact it gets passed, that would try to protect IVF from any kind of legal challenge. I think there's some possibility that the state Supreme Court would strike that law down as inconsistent with a constitutional principle that says life begins at conception.
Experts worry the Alabama ruling has opened the door for other states to possibly follow suit and pass so-called personhood laws that could endanger IVF.
Opponents of IVF might well essentially take a playbook from this litigation and bring similar challenges in other states, seeking rulings that even if they don't render IVF unlawful, make it functionally impossible to provide because of the legal risk involved.
It blows my mind that women who vote regularly, who want a family so badly, who are willing to spend $50,000 to $100,000 and take a shot every day, that's the demographic that they want to rile up ahead of November elections.
37-year-old
so
Maureen
fucked
Chase is
up.
midway through an IVF cycle. Her clinic just postponed her embryo transfer, scheduled for March 18th.
While I was driving down to the State House, I had to turn around to take a shot for my IVF procedure.
This is front and center every day for you, many hours of the day.
Absolutely.
But after meeting with lawmakers at the State House today, she's optimistic.
I'm very hopeful that good things will come out of Montgomery in the state of Alabama today.
Brittany and Ralph hope so too. The clock is ticking.
You picked the wrong population. We're pumped full of hormones. And so we want to fight this and get to be able to have our children.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube.
Oh my God, Bama, that's awful. That is absolutely awful. Man, what is our fucking country coming to, y'all, for real? It's like, and it's even more fucked up though, because they won't even let these people have their own embryos. Like, they can't have them sent out of state and go finish the process. That's not right. And like in Alabama, if you go out of state to get an abortion, you get busted or whatever, you're going to go to jail. It's like, why are they doing this shit, man? Oh my God, Wandering Hearts. That's about all I got on that. I mean, there's a lot of, I want to continue, go search. There's a lot of families speaking out and stuff on this, and it's not right. Right, Bama, but look at how much money it is for IVF or any of that, They're going to lose money. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to think. I've never seen something like this coming. Y'all just pray for America. Also pray for these families that's going through this, because this is me too, Bama. Me too, love. There's not a thing we could do. My dogs are outside raising hell. Hold on just a second. All right, I'm back. She's still out there barking at something. But that's all I got for today. Thank y'all for coming by. And thank you, Bama, for the super chat. I appreciate it very, very much. Cher's been on me forever to monetize, and I finally done it. And I don't know. But thank you all for your support, and I appreciate it. I love you all. And I'm sure, I don't know if Cher's going live later or not. She's going live all the time now. I'm proud of her, though. I've been on her ass. But I love you all. And good night.